that brings us to your team, which is the Los Angeles Clippers. And by your team, I mean the team of which you are a diehard fan of.
Yeah, apparently I'm learning something about myself on this episode. But
who do you have?
I'll start with them. I think the answer here, again, we're operating under the assumption that there are no fundamental changes to the core, and they do still have to figure out a way to bring back like Reggie Jackson. I don't see any path to a departure for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, which means that they really need to find another attacking guard, because this team's biggest shortcoming was its inability to create in the half-court setting, to get to the free throw line, to settle for these hero ball jumpers that George and Leonard are both good enough to make on a consistent basis, but you're putting an enormous amount of pressure on their shoulders. So the best option in that player archetype in this free agent class is probably Derrick Rose. He presumably can be had fairly cheap given his more advanced age at this stage of his career. He's not going to be a game changer, but he was very good for the Knicks during the second half of the season. I mean, to the point that we both considered elevating him all the way to the top of the Sixth Man of the Year rankings just based on what he did in New York. So that could be a relatively cheap option for the Clippers to shore up what emerged as their biggest weakness.
Yeah, I'd really be – I'm with you on that. And look, he's kind of like the only attacking guard that you can envision taking the maybe the mid-level exception. I honestly don't. Like maybe Goran Dragic if his team option gets declined by Miami. I still think Reggie Jackson, you have to bring him back at this point. You can – and why I have him and Nick Batum on the list is so Nick Batum they don't have bird rights on. He either needs to accept 120% raise off what his minimum salary was this season, or they can use their taxpayers mid-level to keep him. Some people think he might resign for cheap just because he got all that money from Charlotte, and this would technically so there's that. At the same time, you might just want to be paid what you're worth, and I would pay the taxpayers mid-level for him if I'm them. So if that's what he commands, or a chunk of it, half of it, whatever, pay him that. Reggie Jackson, they can pay up to about $11 million as the max. I think they're going to have to go close to that high. I don't know if there's a team that'll come and blow him out of the water with an offer. Looking at the cap space teams, like OKC is not going to do it. San Antonio probably doesn't do it. Maybe the Knicks. So I think you just need him back. You also do need to, without Kawhi Leonard, and the fact that you do like to play a little bit smaller, you do need guys on this team that can guard wings. And so I have a Sterling Brown listed, had a really good season in Houston this year. What does it cost for you to get like a Jeff Green? Would he be willing to leave Brooklyn? Maybe. I honestly don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Can you poach a Markieff Morris from the Clippers? Come play with his from the Lakers. Come play with his brother. Not a great selection, but just another bigger body to go in those smaller lineups, or even a Wesley Matthews to defend on the perimeter from the Lakers. So those are the names they're looking at. I think personally they're far more interesting on the trade market. They're not going to get Kemba Walker, I don't think, because if you're OKC, you own the Clippers pick outright. Are you willing to trade Kemba to them in that scenario? Probably not, right?
Probably
I know
not.
Kemba's right. I have Eric Gordon listed, who dealt with groin and knee injuries last year. But
Here's my
he also
backup choice here.
Yeah, so his ultra deep 3-point shooting, even when they don't go in, has value. And he shot 58+% on drives this past year. So he gives you sort of that attacking guard too. And he's held up defensively on the wings. I would assume there were rumors that Houston wants to use Eric Gordon and then either number 23 or 24 to move up to in the draft. And I think one of the trades I saw was that to move him to Indiana for number 13. There are all sorts of things wrong with that report, because what money is Indiana sending to Houston in that deal for it to work? But aside from that, 2 years and $37.6 million guaranteed for Gordon, given his injury history, turns 33 in December. I think teams will be willing to take him on. I'd be shocked if you get more than cap relief. And the Clippers do have all these movable deals. When you look at Patrick Beverley's expiring, if Serge Ibaka opts in, he's expiring. You have Luke Kennard. That deal is at least small enough, even though there's 3 guaranteed years left on it. I really like Eric Gordon in the Clippers. You're not going to like this, and I still might talk myself into it. If you can cobble together the salary filler, which is like $33 million, whatever it is, I don't hate Russell Westbrook in LA, given how well they space the floor. If you have 4 shooters around him. So Oh, I thought you were going to hate that.
What was the best version of Westbrook that we've seen in recent years? It was him alongside Paul George. Do it again.
Was that his best version? I think the version second half of the year in Houston might have been the best version of Westbrook we ever saw when they got rid of
for a full sustained season. But yes,
that's the best version of Paul George we've ever seen. Was him alongside Russell Westbrook?
That was like fringe MVP level Paul George.
Yeah,
which I believe he still refers to as MVP level Paul George.
Yeah, the only issue with it, obviously, is that to just get to the number, to bring back his, he's on the same contract as Paul George. You're looking at John Wall, $44 million next year. You have to trade like all of your, it's Serge, Beverly, Kennard, and Rondo is like how you get, and I would do it, but like is Washington, they're only doing that if they trade Beal, which maybe they do, and then 4-for-1s are just wildly tough to pull off.
I fully agree with all of that. I would really like to see that. I don't know how likely it is because unless Beal is out first and then Washington is totally looking to reboot, it'll be tough to make that happen. But in theory, it does sound like a fun fit.